Salga has submitted an application to the High Court in Pretoria for a declaratory order that would essentially give municipalities exclusive rights to administer, distribute as well as sell electricity. There are 8 metropolitan municipalities, there are 54 district municipalities and 205 local municipalities in South Africa, the boundaries of which extend wall to wall across all of South Africa. Joining us now to explain how to promote and facilitate such an energy and infrastructure plan is Empower Energy CEO, Ms. Rulani Machidze. A very good evening to you and Happy New Year to you, Ms. Machidze. Perhaps let's start off with this proposition, this declaratory order that Salga is seeking from the Pretoria High Court. Is this a good idea to have municipalities having exclusive rights to administer, distribute as well as sell energy?
Good evening, Etami, and good evening to all the viewers, and Happy New Year. And we're starting with the new year with the right focus, because when we talk about energy, we talk about light, we talk about economy, we talk about building the continent, building our country. Yes, looking back or coming back home in terms of Salga, what they are looking for, it is up to us to make sure that the municipalities are able to be, because they've got a constitutional right in terms of distributing the energy within the boundaries to the consumers, to the customers. What we need to do is to make sure that we look at the institutional capacity, we look at capacitating them, we look at making sure their readiness. There are, as you indicated, very few, if we look at them at the industry, very few of the municipalities that are ready, but I believe there's a massive opportunity for us to participate, specifically to bring a private sector in assisting the municipalities with the issues of policy, with the issues of making sure that the infrastructure is ready. Because it's one thing for us to have all this generation capacity, but are we ready to take it to where it's required?
So you are supporting then municipalities being able to exclusively distribute and sell power based on your answer now. So based on that, what would be the benefits then for South Africans should this be the paradigm?
The benefits will be we will have enough energy mix. And of course, because if you look at the value chain of the electricity, you've got a generation industry, and within the generation, you've got different aspects to look at. And I think now we're talking about more generating, making sure we meet the demand. There's been continuous load shedding. I think we all have experienced it, and the timing is perfect. The timing is right because the country needs more energy. We need to strengthen our generation capacity so that we can we can be able to supply the demand required. And often when you come to the municipality level, there's a different focus. You've got a transmission, it's got a different focus, and there's also an entrance for a private sector. On the generation side, the entrance comes through the independent power producers. But on the distribution side, we believe there's a massive opportunity, there's a space for independent distribution system operators. That's where we come. Those infrastructure in terms of the municipality, it needs strengthening. It needs often an infrastructure, a distribution network. It's like you having a vehicle, driving a car, and you don't have a dashboard. Most of our municipalities, it's like that. They are not sure what speed they are driving. They are not sure whether there's still petrol. If I look at that scenario, they just hope that I've got enough petrol, I'm on the freeway, I'll be able to get there, because they don't have the necessary resources, skills that is required. And we come in, we join hands with the municipalities, and we give them the necessary skills that they require and the resources.
And therein, perhaps, Ms. Machidze, lies the bone of contention, in the sense that if municipalities have not been able to deliver basic services to the people, even as far as the collection of refuge, etc., how confident can South African communities be that they will be able now to take care of yet another responsibility when they still haven't yet received even 80% when it comes to what they already have on their responsibility plate?
It's a good question, Tammy, and it's really something that it needs us to reflect and needs us to come up with better strategies. I believe, you are right, we face numerous challenges in terms of service delivery, and yet it's the constitutional right. I believe it's a policy issue. I believe there's a room for other participants, because I can reflect, we can go back to ESCOM and say, look, the infrastructure is in the dire state. ESCOM, please take over. But ESCOM does also not have the necessary resources at the moment to be able to focus on the generation issues, to focus on the transmission. You need to interconnect, to focus also on the distribution. And government at all. If you look at, because one of the challenges that they are unable to offer services is because they can't collect. And if they can't collect, they will want to rely on the government in terms of, your equitable shares and your all other. But there's also limited resources in government. So hence, I'm saying we need to look at policy issues. We need to look at the strategy that can at least assist in terms of making sure that the municipalities are able to collect the revenue. They're able to do what is required in terms of the infrastructure, energy, water, roads, all that. It needs an income, and we can't keep on burdening government. And when we bring private sector, the good part, or I can say the advantage, it comes with responsibilities. I cannot invest if I'm not sure if I can be able to collect, if I can be able to have return on investment. So then it becomes your duty to make sure that there is a return on investment in terms of that if we now run this as a business. I see most of our experience is that we're not at the state, some of the municipalities are not at the state of, they're not running some of these services as a business. It's a charity issue, and a charity can only go up to so far. We need to stand up, we need to take responsibility, and I can assure you the communities that we engage with them, they're ready to pay for their services. They're sick and tired.
So this declaratory order that Salga is seeking from the High Court, is this not maybe putting the cart before the horse? Should the infrastructure in municipalities not first be put in place? You spoke about the lack of institutional capacity, the lack of infrastructure in municipalities to be able to deliver this. Should that not be put in place first? And when that is in place, then we can start looking at increasing the workload for municipalities and increasing their responsibilities, because then they would have shown that they're able to deal with what they have now.
Maybe it's time for also, I think it's an egg and a chicken issue. You're probably right in certain aspects. And how long will it take for us to show that this municipality is ready? Because you're right, I believe we cannot just use a blanket approval for all the municipalities. I think there should be some readiness check that can be done, and it won't be difficult. It's like you have a bucket of water and it's got holes. If you put more water, how much more water do you need? You will just keep on putting water because there's leakages. Probably one of the aspects that we can advise or we can have for Salga is to look at some of the key performance areas, some of the aspects that can be looked at before some of these municipalities are ready. And I can promise you it doesn't take long. In some of the municipalities we worked with, within a period of few months, we could feel the difference, and the customers could feel the difference, and yet it's a very difficult environment in terms of the institutional. It's difficult to work in the environment, but it needs to be done.
Let's talk maybe perhaps now about one of the issues that is being faced by both ESCOM and municipalities. Both are in enormous amounts of debt. Talk to us about that, as well as how those issues can be resolved.
Tammy and the viewers, that is without money, we cannot do anything. We cannot be able to to really solve the challenges that we have. Most of the municipalities are unable to collect the revenue, mainly because they don't have systems in place, mainly because they don't give proper service. If I don't receive proper service, this is some of the community members we engage with, why should I pay? Because this electricity, I receive it 2 hours a day, I've got 4 hours a day. And on the other hand is the fact that if I run a business, I need to make sure that I protect, my cash register. These meters, some of the municipalities you'll find there's no meters. There haven't been meters that have been bought for the past few years. I mean, we can't run a business like that. If we run a business, we need to make sure that whoever uses the service pay for the service. And it's not happening. And unfortunately, if it doesn't happen at the municipal level, their collection level is low as 30%. How do they pay ESCOM? And again, ESCOM needs to be paid because they also have the responsibility. They also have, they need to, they're running a business. To generate, to transmit, to distribute, it costs them money. So I think we just have to go back to basics and make sure that we offer the service that is required, make sure that we put the correct infrastructure. And I can say it's not only metering, but the meter is key. It's my cash register. But I need to make sure that the whole infrastructure is protected. And I think that's where we need to be focusing on simple things to make sure that I have a meter, it's working. If I don't have electricity, if I don't buy electricity, I can't use it.
One of the solutions that have been put on the table as far as helping both ESCOM and municipalities with their debt. Municipalities owe ESCOM, ESCOM owes government, it also owes financiers. One of the options that have been put into place is perhaps that some of the debt can be turned into assets, at least some of the debt from the ESCOM side, the ESCOM debt, that can be turned into assets. Talk to us about that eventuality and how that would work.
Definitely. If you look at the distribution industry, you've got few assets already there sitting there. Your distribution license is an asset that is issued by NESA, which is our national energy regulator. The regulator issues a distribution license. It's an asset by itself. And secondly, the infrastructure. You've got your lines, you've got your transformers, your substations. I try to teach this to my grade 4 and a child, and she sort of understands it when we talk about boxes. You've got this infrastructure that's ultimately bringing the juice to the homes. It's an asset. It's got a value. Then you've got your consumers. You've got your customers. It's an asset. And if you look at that, that can be valued as an asset that can either be operated, handed over. You've got two options. And maybe just to come back in terms of how do we assist the municipalities that are not able to help themselves, because we have those situations where there are institutions that they can't help themselves. So it's either you take the three as I've separated in terms of asset, you can hand it over to ESCOM. ESCOM can value that and start, using that from their balance sheet point of view to say, look, I've got an asset, I've got debt, but then how do I balance this off? Because something needs to be done. Otherwise, we'll end up being, instead of having 2 weeks power outages that we are experiencing recently, it will end up being months and months. Either you give it back to ESCOM so that they can start reinvesting, and making sure that they're able to collect. Or you can have what I call, you've got independent power producers on the generation side, you've got independent transmission system operators on the transmission side, and then on the distribution side, I call independent distribution system operators. Then you give it to this. Yes, it needs to follow the process. It's the assets that government is asset that a municipality, you need to follow all the MFMA, PMFA process, and you give it for a certain period to these independent distribution operators so they can reinvest, they can invest and then they can make sure that they get their money back and really and bring back the asset to the municipality or to whichever structure. It can be through Salga, it can be through any other institution, national treasury, but it is doable. And hence we're saying let private sector, because if you come to the municipality space, who is suffering? Business is suffering, community is suffering. So those and business, every challenge that we have, it creates an opportunity on the other side. And yes, we need to do it responsibly. So you have those two aspects that you can do, and these are tangible assets that you can invest on.
Let's perhaps look at the state of energy generation or power on a more continental level. In December, I believe in 2021, early December, you were part of the delegation that went to the Ghana South Africa Business Forum along with the president. Now, what's quite interesting about Ghana is that their generation capacity, as far as electricity is concerned, far exceeds the demand that is there. How do they manage to reach that type of situation?
I think on the agenda, we need to commend Ghana in terms of what they've achieved for the past a few years. I mean, they are now way above 85% in terms of access, coming from below 20%. And yes, they've got different type of energy mix. They came starting, they were more reliant on hydro, and now they've got gas. And I think it's part of the resources that we have, as a continent, in Ghana specifically. And they've managed to create policies and create an investment for an environment for investment in terms of the generation sector. Hence, they've got enough capacity, which is more than the demand. However, like I indicated, each and every sector has got its own localized challenges. They are biggest in terms of the opportunity that exists. On the generation, they don't have enough, your renewable, your solar, and I think it's a focus area that they've got less than 1% if we exclude your hydro in terms of renewable energy. And that is an opportunity that we are well positioned. And I think I must just reflect back and thanking the Office of the President, the UN Women in terms of sponsoring us. There's been a few women-owned entities that has been we're fully sponsored through the selection of Work Corner, and we've been nominated also by Ms. Betha Dlamini, who's looking at women in energy. So I think we really we're privileged to be part of the 4 women-owned companies that has been sponsored through UN Women to be able to join the president and the total business delegation in Ghana. So we are well positioned to play the role, because we come from the sector where we've got a REAP program, which was very successful. Yes, there's been a break in the past few years, but going forward, we can see there's a lot of opportunities going forward. We now have our generation capacity being and then we've got a women-owned entities that we've managed to connect, and we will work together going forward. Their biggest gap is also on the distribution infrastructure. Their reliability of this energy to customers, and it's expensive because their distribution infrastructure is not reliable. They went out and there was a triple P that they had set together, but unfortunately it didn't materialize. So therefore, it's a space that needs to be thoroughly looked at. They need investment in terms of the distribution infrastructure. They need to set up policies. They need to make sure in terms of the regulation also it's in place.
Perhaps as we close off this evening, let's look at the state of the entire continent. More than 600 million Africans actually lack access to electricity, and this accounts to around 40% or so of the continent's population. How can this be turned around, and what are the main challenges, I guess both financially and infrastructurally, that the continent is facing at the moment?
Yes, Tammy, and we, in terms of resources, when we generate, we use different resources in terms of generating electricity. There's a whole contention that we're talking about. We've got enough coal, we've got enough sunlight, we've got enough wind. So I don't think there is a problem. I think the problem is how do we bring solutions by Africans for Africa? How do we make sure that we've got enough, and I'll talk about the people who are facing more in terms of this 600 million people. It's women, women who need to make sure that they're able to cook, they're able to warm the water for their kids in the morning. And how do we make sure that we've got enough women coming from the villages, coming from different environment? Because what we bring when we bring a solution, of course, the financial issues are also there. But we think differently as women. You give women a 20 rand is quite different when it's with a man in terms of how resourceful. So I think one of the opportunities that exists is to get more women involved, because we bring the feminine leadership skills that are required. We are compassionate, we are vulnerable, we are able to ask for help, and we are able to think long term, because when we have kids, we think of the future of the kids. And similarly, the continent, it's our baby, and we think about where the future of it in terms of the next a few years going forward. We need different solutions. We need to light up the continent. We are called dark continent, and I believe it's not necessary, because we do have the primary energies that are required to be converted for us to light up the continent. And we can partner. We can be as vulnerable as we can to come up with the solutions that are required. And what the last in terms of the solution is to make sure that our solution are socio-economic. Our job is to make sure that we solve the problems that are being faced on the ground: poverty, inequality, unemployment.
I wonder, Ms. Machize, if you can highlight maybe some companies on the African continent that really have this energy problem sorted out, where it's the distribution and even the generation of electricity is not a problem for its citizens. Are there any case studies and best practice scenarios that we can look to perhaps for some solutions?
It's an interesting question, because not only Africa, if you look at the continent, I remember one of the case studies we had to reflect on in terms of Germany, when they had to bring in renewable energy, and then they got so excited, brought it in, and guess what? The network was collapsing on them, because you need a balance, you need a mix, and it's, I can say similarly, like, you never arrive, you almost when you're just about thinking you are there, the next challenge comes. So I think it's not only South Africa, it's not only, if I look at Uganda, they had some very success stories, but it needs to be supplemented. It's almost like you need to look at the value chain at all, and I think that's where even when we come to us back home in terms of ESCOM, we had it. We were the top. We were there. So it's a matter of being foresight. From where we are now, in 20 years' time, will we be there? Because if you look at our challenges, it's things that should have been resolved some time back. I think it's just a matter of. Yes, Tammy.
And the thing is, at some point, South Africa did have it right. At some point, we did have our energy, solutions, and the blackouts that we've been experiencing were not part of our reality. So we certainly do have the infrastructural matrix to be able to make it to work. Issues of maintenance have to be key in order to make sure that what's already there can be maintained, added upon, and builded on. And obviously issues of energy mix as well, as you pointed out. But I think we'll leave it at that for this evening. Thank you so much for this conversation as we look at issues of energy on the continent, specifically a look today at South Africa and Ghana. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. That's Ms. Rulani Machize there. She is the CEO of Empower Energy.